We sit on your lap?
Okay, we're live.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order, Village Council on April the 18th at 1 o'clock. And first of all, read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral lands of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Is there anyone with pecuniary interest?
None. Right here.
We'll move down to
New business.
new business. And we're here today to talk about the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Grant application.
Okay, so this is the grant that it was talked about at one of the committee meetings there a couple of weeks ago, and I've been working with our consultant, and Jay has been working on it. I've consulted with the engineer working on our capacity study, as well as engineers for the different developers. It's actually the same development firm is working with both developers, so they've given us some advice as well. And so the proposal is to basically replace the sewage collection system from Venetian or from Exmouth Street to the plant. Total replacement of all the mains along Venetian Boulevard, some upgrades to the existing pump station that's right by the old former Holiday Inn Hotel, a new pumping station on the former Homes Foundry property, and a new pumping station at the Marina Lands. The numbers that we're using for the budget come out to just over $25 million. And those, like, there's not been a great deal of engineering work done on that. There's a lot of information gathered through our capacity study. And then we have the planning justification reports from the two developers to give us kind of what the expected flows out of the two properties are. And so, you know, they've told us what they think we need for sizing of pipes to get the effluent to the plant. So there could be quite a bit of fluctuation from those prices, but we've estimated them high rather than low, just to be sure that we get everything covered. We have priced replacing the water line for the whole length of road. We don't think that's going to be necessary. From that pumping station to the plant is still would need to be replaced.
Water main would be replaced from basically the split from Venetian or Casino Road to the handle.
So the rest of it was replaced
Couple
6 or 8 years ago when that project was done. But again, the one thing we don't know, we don't think it's going to be an issue, but we don't think that water line is really going to be supporting this project. But if we're redoing the road, we're going to redo the water line. So we've put in to do that. We've also, in that 25 million, we've included about $3 million for planning work at the plant to do an environmental assessment and any planning work, design work for expansion of the plant. There's currently, as the report states, about 900 units available at the plant still. Those two developers are looking in the range of 2,500. And then, as someone mentioned earlier, just in brief discussions before the meeting, that, you know, there's other potential development. There's what could go on the main street on Michigan Ave, the development there potentially, and also Kentucky Lee property. So we need to take those matters into consideration when we're doing the planning work for the plant. And the engineer estimated anywhere between $2 and $4 million to do the planning work. Now those numbers also included not just the planning, but also the construction monitoring work. So But we included 3 million in the application. So that's where we get to the $25 million. The work has to start by September of this year, which getting engineering work started would not be a problem, and that's the engineering work counts towards starting the project. So we're, at least that's the consultant's advice to us, is that would meet the requirements of the grant. The work has to be completed by the end of the 26-27 fiscal year, so March 31st of 2027. And that's one of the reasons we're not including any actual expansion work at the plant, no physical construction work at the plant, because there's just, the engineer tell us there's no way. The environmental assessment work that has to be done, the planning work, it would just, there's no way we get the planning and the plant done by the end of 2027. So that's why we're not including construction work in it. So the application is pretty much ready to go. There's just a few more questions that Jay is getting some answers on, and he's meeting, I believe, with the engineer this afternoon to get some help with a couple of answers. We'll have the application. We'd like to submit it today if possible, but if not, tomorrow morning. There's a number, I've circulated the documents. They consider ability to handle the project. There's a number of factors they consider. One of the factors is price per unit. So if we're doing this expansion, it's going to cost us $10,000 per unit, and somebody else is going to cost $20,000, we're going to be looked at favorably. It's not the only factor, it's just one of the factors. So the consultant also, she felt we should include the 3 million, the planning at the plant, because it shows the government that we have some capacity at the plant now for expansion, but that to meet everything that could come if the developments come as far as they're saying they will, there does need to be expansion at the plant too. So that sends a message that, you know, we're doing what we're doing now is going to support 900 units, but there will need to be further investment down the road to support the rest. So I thought that she thought that made a lot of sense to include that planning work and a bit of an explanation. So the other issue, we've reached out to our consultant that does work for us on property tax appeals and such, and talked to them about giving us some kind of an idea of what would be generated revenue wise from property taxes. And they're working on that. I hope to have a number by the council meeting on Tuesday. I don't know for sure I will. But I mean, it'd be nice to have that information, you know, before we make a final decision to, you know, if we get selected for the grant. I think we need to try and figure out what some of the costs are going to be to support this, because it's not just water and sewers, it's fire and police and potentially public works, depending on how that, you know, who's going to maintain ownership of internal roads on the Homes Foundry property, if that's going to become a public works responsibility, any parkland on the property, those kinds of things. And the same thing at the other development. Is that, you know, they're putting in a plan of condominium, which tells me they want to maintain ownership and they would look after the road system, but I don't know that for sure. That part has not been figured out yet. That's all part of the planning process, but I just felt that council should be aware of what the application is actually entailing, and give you an opportunity to ask questions. And not that I will be able to answer the questions now, but at least I'll be able to know what questions to try and get answers for as we move down the road.
You didn't mention, or maybe I didn't hear it, the other development that we haven't heard anything about recently towards Alexander on Venetian.
The
condos.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, that, I mean, that's relative. It's about 25, 30
something,
units. So it's not,
okay.
I mean, you're right. It would have to be considered.
Well, I
But
don't
it's
know.
not.
I mean, they cleared the land. I thought they were somewhere getting ready
Yeah.
to go, but I don't know.
Yeah, we have not heard anything from them for quite a while. I think right now, I mean, if they were to come online right now, it wouldn't
Wouldn't matter. Okay.
make a difference.
And the other question was, you're talking about, you know, the tax people that came in and they're working on the number now. You said to have it for council on Tuesday. You don't really have to have it for council on Tuesday. We have to have it when we go to make decision.
Yeah,
You know, this versus that, what you got coming.
that's
in.
just what he told me. He thought he could have it
Okay,
by
alright.
that time. And I think it would just, and then, I mean, the other piece, he's gonna give us a number based on full development.
Right.
What that is versus what it is, you know, what's gonna happen in 2025, what's gonna happen in 2032,
Yeah,
like.
is it staged?
That is gonna be a hard part to predict. And even, you know, the planning justification report talks about phases, does not talk about timelines, and it's a plan, it's not concrete, right? You know, it's gonna, a lot of it's gonna be market driven, so there are going to be significant risks to to the development. So.
It wasn't my question. I'm losing my voice.
Okay. Rest of the meeting.
So we've talked about we're adding entire water main replacement. We seem to be rounding up numbers to be safe and have contingency. Does that risk approval, and is approval all or none? Or do they come back and say, well, we don't agree with your number on this? Like, I just worry that we're going in at 25 million. I read on the FAQ, there's only so much in the pot. And I worry that you go to 25 million and we get turned down, but they would have approved 20 million.
Mhm.
And by putting in the entire water main replacement, which it's, as you said it, you said at the same time, we don't think we'll need it. So then are we risking that?
Yeah. It's not a huge amount of money.
Yes, because it'll be dug up anyways.
Yeah, right, the road's dug up anyhow.
So I guess it's more not specific to that, but just,
Yeah,
is it an all or nothing? And inflating the number, does that risk us not getting it?
so it's certainly a good question. It's hard to say if it's all or nothing. I don't know for sure what their process is. I do know our numbers seem quite favorable. The lady that's helping us with the application is working on with a few other communities as well, and she says our numbers are quite favorable to everybody else's in terms of a per unit basis.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a question I totally understand it,
Yeah.
and it's gone over in my head a number of times. The other piece is $73% dollars.
That's my next question. Yeah.
So
Who pays that 6 mil,
Yeah.
let's say, and how do we get it from who we think should pay?
So my personal belief on that is the developer should be paying that. In most communities, the developer paying the whole thing.
Right.
They'd be paying the 25 million. So, or whatever, they'd be
Yeah.
paying the entire cost of the development of the improvements. So they should, you know, there would be negotiation. I'm sure they don't think they should be paying the whole shot, but that's kind of how it's
But you
works
feel
in other
if,
communities.
you feel if we go to them and say, we've secured 25 million to support your project, but you owe us 6,
Yeah.
that would be met.
So one I can say in any talks we've had with them, the fact that we don't have development charges has been very attractive to them. But we have always said to them, however, you're responsible for the sewer, you know, you're responsible for the infrastructure costs.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm sure there will be a negotiation. For sure there would be.
And would we also pass on the costs that the consultants are charging us to write the grant? Right.
So
We cover that as well.
that cost is not eligible for the grant.
Right.
That, again, that would be part of a negotiation.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got a phone call scheduled with the owner of the company tomorrow to talk about, because the regular percentage is just, I mean, the amount we would pay under a normal,
Yeah.
like normal agreement is for grants around, you know, a
10%.
couple 100,000 or something. You're not gonna give 10% of 25 million. Or even
We use that
17.
lady to do
Yeah.
the one for the Greenfield or Brownfield, Greenfield.
Yep, and it's the same lady, it's
Yeah.
the same
Oh, it's the
people.
same lady, Linda.
Yep. So it's,
And then my final question is, on the books, we have an upgrade to the storm water pump stations. What's it called? Bayshore, Bayside, Bayview, right? It was one of the bays. Should we be capturing that in this? As it is, it's a big expense, and you could argue there will be a lot more storm water runoff from at least the Holmes Foundry. I sense there's a lot of pavement there, but also the other. So should that be captured in all this?
it's,
Discussed.
yeah, we talked, Jade brought that up yesterday, and it is eligible.
Mhm.
We don't have anything for that. We don't have anything from an engineer to say what we might need, what the cost might be.
But Jay's brought forward budgetary numbers. Have you not?
For a repair, I do have the older. Budgetary quote from, the engineer to do the generator, standby generator and switch it over to electric. It's from 2018. I can ask, I don't think they have it for tomorrow, but we could ask them. We could use the old numbers.
You just had some inflation.
Put some inflation into it. But we didn't have that number for, it was either 20, I think it was 28 for 1 week, that they did that.
But as part of the 25 million, which we think there's some contingency built in, can we not just add that as a project? Because I think I remember you saying numbers of $1 million, million and a half.
In 2018, it was like 850,000,
Right,
to keep it as,
diesel,
diesel, we're looking probably 300.
but the 800 was to go electric and
800 was to go standby generator, all electric.
so, if either we just put the words in that it's part of the project and carve $1 million out of the 25 million,
Mhm.
hoping that we're being generous, and at least it shows too that we're making a plan to manage the extra stormwater, right, as part of this project, these projects. And then, or, like, I don't think going to 25.5 million is really gonna make a difference, but if at least if it's listed in the scope of the project, if there's money left over, we can
Mhm.
attack it and be done with it, and off we go. So I don't know what your consultant would think, but I'm just thinking, try and capture as much.
I think she would think it's a good thing to cover
The more you
the
can
three
sell.
sources or the three
Yeah.
silos instead of just two.
Yeah.
I think. And there's, like Jay brought up there's this technical report he's working on, and it is one of the places that really strongly mentions the stormwater, and there's no question they would look more favorably if we included stormwater.
Okay, so yeah, that's in mind. Thank you.
Okay, Paul? Let's go down.
What makes us more favorable on the grant? Is there things on there such as the increase of our population percentages? Like we're almost doubling, and then we're using our existing footprint. And we're not expanding our borders. We're not taking away farmland. Just things that I see constantly in the media
Mhm.
when it comes to housing projects and, what is more favorable. Is there anything on the grant application regarding that?
Not specifically, like what they talk more about is your cost per unit. And then they look at, like, they want my references, they want Jay's stuff, they want information about projects that the village has carried out and been able to manage over the, for the last few years. So they want that information, that's part of it.
I guess I'm looking at more from the political standpoint,
Yeah.
where you read from upper tier governments saying, this project looked really good because we're increasing our population density versus expanding our borders into agricultural land and maybe some other areas like that.
That's an excellent point, like that we're not eating up prime farmland. Like,
Yeah.
because a lot of communities like Sarnia, they're growing, but it's because they're eating up all the
Expensive.
agricultural, where we're
And-
growing on
and not-
brownfield.
Yeah, not just our neighbors, other municipalities
Yeah.
across the province. And I think, we're rejuvenating a brownfield site. And, you know, I think that should be considered in the project for sure.
Okay, I'll talk to the consultant and see if there's a place to put that. I think it's a really good point.
Well, and it's great material for, if I may, when they do their press release,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
That's the
Yeah,
hook that they
we can
want.
expand without compromising a lot of other things.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we have our upper tier politicians coming here to say, look at this great project, it makes them look good and
Mhm.
Okay.
That's excellent. I never thought of that.
Actually, Bob Bailey said to me when this first came out that he thought this was an excellent opportunity for us, but he was specifically referring to Homes Foundry because he knew what the impact was going to be.
Mhm.
And he brought it to my attention as it got announced. So he's thinking about it. Are you done, Paul? Then?
yeah, that was
You
just the
go
one
to
thing.
Tim?
I'm just gonna make a comment on the Bayview. We would get reimbursed 18%, would we not, from the federal government? On that, the Federal Bridge Corporation?
Yeah.
So that's another, you know, that's the significant funds. You were saying $1 million, 18% of that certainly does help. See what else. If we don't get the funding, what's our plan B?
Well, yeah, I don't know for sure. I think the federal government, like this is a provincial
Yes.
grant. The federal government announced quite a bit of money in their recent budget, so I think we go and I think we start investigating that right off and apply for both. Right off the hop, so. I do believe, like, if the village needs to come up with $25 million. I don't think it happens. I don't think, I don't know where we come up with that kind of money. So, it's back to the discussion we've had about servicing the property in other ways, and I mean, that might have to come back on the table.
Well, I know, relooking at this today, there's a project, there's potentially 7 phases. Right, so phase 1 would be a couple hundred units. Not, not the big number that we're talking. So, like, I think it'd be, like, when I looked, it'd be phase 2 before we'd be in trouble. We'd run out of capacity. So, and how many years that's gonna be, we don't know. Because we know buildings take a long time to build. Right, so we've got years, but, we don't have forever. So we can still come up with a plan, because I know I read one municipality said if they don't get their money, their development is gonna take, it's gonna take them 10 years to come up with the money to do the work they need to do for 1,400 homes or something. Put the infrastructure in, so.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen how successful we are trying to build reserves and such for our water and wastewater department. I mean, we're having trouble.
Yes.
It's very difficult to make the repairs we need to make, let alone put aside money to put in a $25 million improvement to deal with more.
Oh, go
She
ahead.
doesn't have a turn
Yeah.
yet.
That's
So-
okay.
I was just gonna follow up on something Tim said.
Okay,
if I-
then follow up, then Ryan.
We talked about how long it will take for Homes Foundry to move forward in different phases. The reality is, well, we don't know how far along the developer is, right? If we get this grant, they may start breaking ground. Like, we don't know what's
Yeah.
happening on their end. We're assuming that they may have everything done, drawn, and ready to come to us with site plan and good to go, much like, the Venetian building that just got built, like during their delays, they did everything in their power and it's up, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I worry about is if we don't, and then they may just come to us and say, and then it may fall apart. So that's just.
Yeah.
Like I say, they may be in phases, he may be ready to go tomorrow,
Yeah.
for all we know.
The amount of units they're talking, they can't conceivably start everything at once.
No, I agree, yeah.
Like, it's gotta be phased, and it
Yeah.
will be a number. of
And,
years.
and also from their perspective, in earlier discussions with them, it's phase 2 bring in money as well.
Yes,
So you get this part pays for this part, so he wasn't, early discussions, he wasn't planning on everything at once. He was starting here and then moving here. But that could have changed by now in the new drawings.
We do know, I mean, they have submitted their official plan
Yeah.
amendment, their zoning bylaw amendment, so that,
They have?
yeah. Yeah, they submitted about, probably about 3 weeks ago now. So the county has brought in extra resources to deal with that application, and we're meeting with them on Tuesday morning. Tuesday. To start that process, so it's. You know, they are taking steps forward, absolutely.
Mhm.
One more question, if I could. I read in there that you can stack grants.
Mhm.
So if we get this, we're on the hook for 27%. I know we're talking to developers and all that, but it led me to believe that you can still go out for federal and provincial grants to fill up that 27%. To help.
Right,
So I'm assuming we would do that depending on, what happens. We would still be out looking for money.
Like a GoFundMe. I'm just-
Yeah, but we
Who else?
go fund me through the provincial government or a different plan that they
Yeah,
have or the
yeah.
feds.
and that is an unusual, that stacking
Yeah,
feature is
yeah.
unusual.
Yes,
Usually it's,
But-
Yeah.
usually it's very clear the other way.
but they were very clear in here that you could
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
So.
But
okay, I'm
you
done.
can just see like not the pressure, I mean, the priority that is being put on developing houses. Like all this coming through and you're not gonna have to do this and you're not gonna have to do that. They're really focused on cutting out some red tape and getting housing built, so. I want to think optimistically. Again, because we're not infringing on parks and farms and things like that. There you go.
So it, obviously the grant, if we are selected, covers a portion of the costs. You mentioned that if we, to cover some of the other portions of the fund, we would speak with the developers and kind of try to come to an agreement.
Mhm.
If that doesn't happen, for whatever reason, are we on the hook to still follow through with the project regardless if we're approved for the grant?
I would, no, I would say until you sign on the dotted line, you're not committed to anything.
That's the other question.
And then
And-
also to apply for the federal money
Mhm.
as well as another option
Yeah.
to supplement.
I just have one extra quick. Our agreement regarding the home sounding property with the sale,
Mhm.
is there not money that flows to us when development starts? Or was that, they still owe us money,
They
right?
still owe us money, but it doesn't. So it's a receivable.
Okay, so it's
So the
already.
money's already in the books. It's,
Okay,
yeah, and I mean, they're paying interest. We gave them not the normal tax rate of interest.
yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, it doesn't. That money's already spoken for, I guess is what I'm saying.
Cause, and could it be used towards, like, we're obviously incurring professional expenses related to this whole thing, so. Is that receivable? Could it offset some of those costs to help us manage?
So right now, the receivable is basically, I would say it's in one of the reserves, really, like
Okay.
it's money that is sitting there as a receivable and billed to, I'm gonna say probably 2022, maybe 2021. So it's already in there as revenue.
Right.
And
And then we're
so it's
generating-
really, yeah, we're generating a bit of interest, which is in the budget as well. It's, we're budgeting, I think it's 140,000 or whatever it is for interest this year, and it's included in that. If, you get the money in, like, you would have to take money out of a reserve
Right.
to pay
okay,
for those, yeah.
Question, Jay, the new apartment building. Servicing that, was that factored into what we have left?
The 16 one?
Yeah, 50.
Yeah,
units.
that was included in the.
So we've accounted for that and we still
have.
have this much left. Because they'll be online by at the end of the year, something like that,
Soon.
soon, yeah.
Hopefully that they can include it in for the Barrington or the exactly stuff.
Right, no, nothing's.
They knew about it, but they didn't put it in.
Because if they were included, that would get our per unit cost down, but neither one of them have confirmed what they're doing.
Not officially,
No,
I mean.
even though Merrington showed us some drawings,
Plan,
he
yeah.
he could change it 10 times over
Sure.
since, and same with the other property, we haven't even, there's been nothing presented.
Not for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Except like Merrington, when he leveled that ground, I thought he was ready to move forward in something.
I think, when it comes time, I mean, a lot of the money we're spending is all needs to be done to support this development. I'm gonna say on the south side of the village.
Mhm.
And it's like that development, if Cantac Lee were to come in tomorrow and say, we want to start building tomorrow, we're gonna have 500 units. That would be pretty easy.
Mhm.
Plant doesn't need expansion for that. You might have to put a pipe across the road.
Yeah.
Like I think it would be fairly simple. I mean, it's still gonna cost a few $100,000,
Yeah,
but it's fairly simple.
yeah. As far as the infrastructure to get
Yeah,
the product, the plant.
yeah.
Yeah.
So. Now, when it comes time to expand the plant, and if you want to get your per unit cost down, that's probably a good thing to include the number of units there as well.
Yeah.
And so, we've got capacity to get all this material from the south side to the plant, but now we need to expand the plant, and that will enable another 1,800 units, 1,600, whatever the number is, at the south end, but it'll also enable another 500 at the Cantac Lee property. So it's, then you're dividing the number by 2,000 instead of 1,500.
Any other questions?
So are we making, it says to receive and file your report, are we not making a recommendation that, or did the staff go ahead with the grant without a motion?
We can. I kind of think it would be nice to have council endorse the grant application. That was something I was gonna bring up, that, kind of a separate motion that council, we receive and file the report, and then we do another motion to endorse it, but I just thought I'd bring that up. It's unusual. Again, most of these grant applications, you have to have a motion from council to endorse the application, but this one doesn't require it, but I think
But a motion might help it, and again, it might be something to put in the application that a meeting on April 18th, the Village of Council unanimously
Yeah.
endorsed this application.
we're also getting a letter, sorry,
There you go.
I'm sorry.
That's
We're also getting a letter from the Sarnia Lampton Economic Partnership endorsing it as well. They reached out to me the other day, offered to do that, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've seen in the news or reading different articles where other municipalities have done a motion as well at their councils. That way,
Mhm.
it's firm, like something that you really all agree on or whatever.
So we need to receive and file first. Or do it all together.
I think it would be cleaner to do just two separate motions.
Okay, so first motion is to receive and file,
Also move.
I'll second.
okay? And, any
And,
questions, any more questions? Okay, all in favor, receive and file? And then the next motion would be to endorse the application to the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Grant application, okay? And so these two.
Left and the right,
It's pretty good.
unless we keep getting along.
Any other questions? All in favor? Okay, that's completed. Harry, thank you.
Now, I didn't do a confirmation bylaw today because there weren't any really, that's for more to cover actionable items. And there really aren't any actionable motions out of this meeting, so that's why there's no confirmation bylaw. So just need to adjourn.
Motion, thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.